What's up, guys? It's been a while since I've been behind the mic. It's yours truly, Air Raid Mike, the host of the Air Raid Attack podcast, your home of the unscripted, unfiltered, 100% authentic. We have a fun show for you tonight. We're going to be talking some SEC football and, of course, Missouri Tigers. And I know, it's entertaining even when you're not diving into the conversation with a certain individual of a certain fan base that I'll probably, talk about here later on in the show. But it's actually kind of quite interesting how the fan bases will attack one another just really for no reason, even though Missouri and Oklahoma hasn't seen each other in, 10 years now. So anyway, not saying it's OU, but come on, guys, be better. Without further ado, let's introduce to you our today's guest. She is the co-host of the Miz Ou, That's Who on KCSN. And without further ado, let's introduce to you Miss Maggie Johnson. Miss Maggie, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. That was an awesome intro. I was when it came on and I was like jamming kind of behind the scenes. So
well,
I was glad. I wasn't expecting it. So I was like, oh my gosh, that was cool.
No, I appreciate that. For all you that you don't know if you don't ever watch a live show or the preview of the live shows or whatever, check us out on YouTube. That's where she's talking about. So, no, it's honor of having you on. I know you're pretty busy yourself, of course. College football. Well, I would say it has kicked into full gear, but it definitely has now because conference play for the most part across the country officially started last week for many, and so. Tell us first of all, before we go into the conference of the Missouri Tigers and their hot start so far, tell the listeners out there a little about yourself and the Miz Ou, That's Who on KCSN.
Yeah, so I'm a Miz Ou grad. I graduated a little bit ago. Don't want y'all to do the math on it, but I'm sure you could figure it out if you really wanted to. But yeah, I was there when Miz Ou was in the Big 12. So I've got a lot of experience with OU fans, got a lot of friends that are OU fans. So it is a fun rivalry. I spent a few years living in Southwest Missouri, and there are a lot of OU fans in Southwest Missouri. It's not too far from like the Tulsa fan base. Right. So there's a lot of OU fans in Tulsa, obviously. So I grew up with OU fans, and it's a great rivalry. Some people get kind of upset when you say rivalry because they're like, oh, it's not really a rivalry. We whoop your butts all the time. So I get that, whatever. But yeah,
Oklahoma State fans, they know what we're talking about. I mean,
exactly. That's what I feel like I hear from OU, Oklahoma State all the time. But so I do a podcast called Miz Ou, That's Who on the KC Sports Network. They cover Chiefs a lot. It's a big Chiefs network, but we also cover K-State. K-State's a massive college coverage for them. They cover KU, Royals, Sporting KC, anything you could really think of in the Kansas City network, they cover. So I'm over here in St. Louis. I do the podcast with Gabe DeArmond, who is our rivals coverage guy, kind of like Parker, and Tucker Franklin, who's based in Kansas City. So it's a great, fun podcast. It's my second season doing it. Really have enjoyed it. I'm glad they asked me to do it. And I'm honored that you asked me to do this podcast with you. So hopefully other OU fans, are listening and can see that I'm a normal person. I'm not so bad. So.
That's one thing that social media has absolutely have done is changed how we think about people. And, just because we say one thing after another, it's like, oh, this person's hideous. And, truthfully, so they may be behind closed doors too. I have no idea. But, be kind of like, wow, that person on Mike's show or your show or anybody else's show, doesn't really matter what podcast you listen to. They're actually cool people. It's like, yeah, it's cool if you actually get to know somebody and chit chat. You don't have to chit chat about everything, but.
My favorite's just like they say one thing, they're like, you don't know ball. I'm like, okay. It's like, I'm like, well, I mean, we just literally talked for like 30 seconds on like one thing. about a pair of gloves. I don't know.
Yeah, I know
Like,
exactly what you're
I
talking
don't know if
about.
that really has anything to do with knowing ball or not. But
Yeah, I know exactly. And real quick, that's interesting. For any of you, it's like, what is that even talking about? There's a recruit out there if you haven't been watching, that's committed to Missouri, top player in the country. But I know what you're talking about because Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, even if you don't, even now, if you don't follow people, you still get a lot of people's feed. And I really don't think much into those gloves things. I don't really, I just don't care now whether or not that means something for him. Cool. I mean, if he wants to try to get social media platform, cool. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, my thing about recruiting, it's a tough one. I know that NIL plays a lot into it now, but I always say wait till they sign the dotted line. It's just, and a lot of these great players, they don't turn out to be much hot stuff in college too. So I mean, rankings are cool. I like it, but it's just you really gotta let them plan out and pan out in their college seasons.
right. And I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a recruit. I mean, I'm in my 30s, okay?
Right.
I'm not
Fair.
tweeting at recruits. I've never been a somebody a female that's tweeting at high
Yep.
school boys. I think that's weird. People do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell anybody what they can do. It's just not for me. So I'm not going to tweet at anybody about a pair of gloves that they're wearing. But I'm just also one of those people. I'm like, he's 17, 18 years old. If he wants to wear a pair of OU gloves, he wants to wear a pair of Nebraska gloves. I know he was wearing some of those. I'm just like, do what you want to do. You have them. Do it. Do I know if he's going to be a Missouri Tiger come December? No. I just know that he's committed to Missouri. So I just trust that that's what he's going to do.
Yep.
Now, we've seen I'm going to go back to like Luther Burden. I know Luther Burden was committed to OU and now he plays for Mizzou, but I've seen players leave Mizzou and go play at other places. So you just don't know what's going to happen. It's still early. There's still, what are we in? Like we're end of September now. There's still 2.5 months until signing day. So anything can happen. I hope he's a Missouri Tiger because our defensive line can take all the help that it can get all the time. Everybody wants a 5-star recruit.
Well, of course.
Anybody that says that they don't, they're lying to themselves. So
yeah, I mean, again, you're right. Anybody that says, "Well, we don't really," it don't matter. Yes, it does.
We don't need them. Yes,
exactly.
you do.
Yeah, you do. Trust
yes,
me.
You do.
I mean, as much as our defense has absolutely drastically improved, even though, for the exception of Cincinnati, we really haven't played anybody. But still, you've seen huge improvements on the field. Everybody's still going to need a number 1 player and the number 2 and 3 and any 5-star, heck, even 4-star, but definitely 5-star. If you're out here, I mean, I'm sure. No offense to them, the University of Illinois would love to have a 5-star defensive lineman. I mean, come on. So,
well, look how good Illinois' defense was last year, and then everyone's like, "Oh, they're going to be pretty decent this year," and then they go to Kansas and just get absolutely murdered. I mean, destroyed, and they're going to probably have a top 5. Top 10 draft pick. So on the defensive side. So, I mean, yeah, anybody that says that they don't want a player like that, they're out of their minds.
You're out of your mind.
Out of your
you'll
minds.
Be going to the mental health hospital. No. So let's go to Missouri. And real quick, I mean, again, that goes shows you right back to rankings. Real quick, OU fans. Brent Rolls. I'm sure none of you probably know who the God's goodness I'm talking about. I'm 35. I'm dating myself on that one. Best player out of Louisiana. White was 3. White was 4. 5 was. I would say he was oh my God. Either the class of 04 or class of 05. Anyway, the best quarterback came out of Louisiana and obviously never started at Oklahoma. And it was needless to say, I think he eventually went to Louisiana Tech. So I don't know what he's doing now. As long as he's not selling, I can't think of the guy's name that was getting money from the dealership. Rhett Bomar. As long as you're not Rhett Bomar, you'll be perfectly fine. So, without further ado, um, let's talk some Missouri football. Of course, I will say, I haven't watched all the games except for the exception of Kansas State. Thought that was a phenomenal game. Crazy ending.
It was
I
the best game on that weekend. It's
Oh
probably
my
like
God, yes. I mean, we had Tulsa who we do, and so that was by far the best week in the game. I ain't gonna lie, I thought you guys coughed it off. I'm like, well, Missouri screwed this one out. But anyway, obviously I lost that one too. Going on a 4-0 start. What's your thoughts on Missouri as you guys approach conference play this week against Vanderbilt? But what have you liked and what have you not liked out of your Tigers, even though they are 4-0 and ranked 23rd in the country?
So it's kind of funny. The offense is actually the shining star right now, and the defense has been not terrible, but they've kind of kept us in. The offense is what's kept us in the game or won us the games,
Right.
and the defense has kind of kept the opposing team in the game. And you would have thought that it would have been the opposite going into the season. I mean, that's at least what I thought it was going to be. I thought the games were going to be a little bit lower scoring, and they've kind of been not super high scoring games, but I at least thought that they would be, even lower. Last year, I think we were scoring around 17 points a game, almost every game. So I thought it would be opposite of that. So I've been very proud of Brady Cook. I think he's just absolutely shined. And the first couple of games were really tough, but we needed those 2 games to keep the playbook closed a little bit leading into K-State. And honestly, it benefited us. And it was funny. We did the podcast leading up into K-State, and we got so many comments on that podcast. We'll talk some fan bases here in a little bit. That's a crazy. That's one of the interesting fan bases. But we talked about all of these role players that we have, like Luther Burden, and they all knew about Luther Burden, but we talked about all of these other ones, and they were just like, no, you don't know anything, you this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And then after they were like, well, we didn't know you had all these players, and we didn't know this. And we're like, what do you mean? We told you. We literally, you watched our podcast or you listened to our podcast. We told you about all these players. But no, like Cody Schrader has been like amazing. He leads the SEC in rushing yards. He's, he has 403 rushing yards. I'm trying to see how many, I think he has like 3 touchdowns, not very many touchdowns, but the touchdowns are really spread out. We have wide receivers that, like Luther Burden only has a few touchdowns, but in last Saturday's game, he had 10 catches for 177 yards and 0 touchdowns. But when you're getting 177 yards and if you have 0 touchdowns, I'm not upset. I'm not upset at you.
You're still producing regardless, even if you're not in the end zone.
Exactly. If somebody else is getting in the end zone, it doesn't matter. Like touchdowns aren't everything. And if you're spreading the wealth, nobody cares. So yeah, the way that they're doing everything, they just play such a well-oiled machine. And they're all so happy for each other. Every single time Cody Schrader scores, or every single time a new player scores. Marquise Johnson, he's a freshman, had a 76-yard touchdown against Memphis the other day. And the first person that congratulates him is Luther Burden. So you just love to see that from those guys. And I couldn't be prouder of the way that they're playing. Now, do I know it's going to get harder, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Obviously. I mean, K-State's great competition. I think they're still probably going to end up in the top 4 in the Big 12. I'd be shocked if they're not. I think it's going to be, Texas, OU, K-State, likely maybe Kansas. I think Kansas loses to all 3 of those teams. Oh, well, no. Oh, you guys don't play them. I know they play Texas and K-State. They don't play you guys.
Yeah, because one thing that I know that I was glad about that OU does not play Kansas State. I think
I know
excellent for us, even though it's kind of sad to see just because it's our final year in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
You kind
You
of have
guys have
to
lost to him 3 of the last 4. I'm pretty
exactly.
sure.
And so I'm kind of, but it doesn't mean we may not lose to Central Florida, may not,
Yeah.
or BYU, but
Yeah.
but
Or you
anyway,
guys
no.
could play him in the. You guys could play him
Mhm.
in the championship. I
Conference
mean, you never
championship
know.
game.
That I mean, that obviously depends on how that Texas OU game kind
Yeah.
of plays out. But
Cross fingers, we scored 2 points.
yeah, I mean,
Give us 3 points. I mean,
it'll be
no,
way better than last year.
as long as Dylan, we're in the same situation as we were last year. As long as Dylan Gabriel this time doesn't get hurt, or and in this case aspect, concussion protocol, I believe we'll be perfectly fine for Texas. And I'm not sitting out here, Longhorn fans, and saying that we're going to win. It gives us a better chance to beat Texas. Texas is beatable. They beat Alabama and played a real game, but we realized that might not have been that big of a win after all because Alabama's struggling with their whole identity. But anyway,
They were a little hungover last week too.
Yeah,
Who
they
did
were.
they?
Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they curb stomped Baylor, and then they were a little hungover from that win. So I don't know, but yeah, I think Vandy. I think we play Vandy this week. We now I'm not sure if AJ Swan is playing. He's their quarterback, who's a pretty decent, but he's been plagued with some injuries, and they haven't said if he's playing yet. So that'll be interesting to see if he plays. I always have mixed emotions on if I want teams at full strength or if I don't.
Well, and well, no, and that's a great, kind of point because you're looking at Vanderbilt. I get it. It's Vanderbilt. I mean, I would imagine Missouri should walk into Nashville this week and on Saturday and really should handle business, I would hope, for you guys. But, you're looking at the schedule. I mean, it doesn't get any easier. Not saying that the SEC is easy because definitely not. And I think I wish some of the OU fans would realize that coming next year. But you got LSU in Columbia. That should be an interesting game. But you go to Lexington with Kansas, Jesus God, Kentucky. You go,
those basketball schools, they all run together.
Hey, let's get a basketball matchup here. You guys, Spencer Rattler comes to Columbia. At least beat them. But you go to Georgia. You guys home against Tennessee, home against Florida, and then finish off the regular season at Arkansas. The home games are, the whole schedule remains schedule stuff. The home game stretch is pretty daunting. You got LSU, South Carolina is going to be a pretty better team this year, even though Spencer's kind of here and there at times. Tennessee and Florida. Of course, again, you guys should handle Vanderbilt quite on, they should. Is there any on that stretch that, obviously Georgia, we all would assume that we don't see Missouri winning, but anything's happened.
Georgia.
Yeah. That's going to be tough, but
tough.
anything's possible. You look at that rest of that schedule. It sounds like a dumb question. Who do you guys think you can beat? Well, hopefully everybody, but we know that's not realistic. Right. Is there any game where you can think that Missouri may have a chance against? Mm-hmm. And if so, who would that be, or if there's multiple teams?
So I put us at 8-4 at the beginning of the season.
Right.
And that was before I thought that our offense was better. Like before I knew our offense was better. So I still think that we lose, man. Because I know I'm gonna have some Mizzou listeners on here too. I still have us losing to LSU and Georgia, likely Tennessee,
right.
And then probably, I had in there. I don't remember actually who I had in there. I think I had Arkansas as the last loss, just because it's in Fayetteville on like KJ Jefferson's like senior night, and I'm. And that's a weird one, but Arkansas is not as good as I thought that they were maybe going to be. So their defense is very not good. So, they bless Barry Odom. Like, he's a Mizzou alum and I love him. And I know he's at UNLV now, but he left him with not very much to work with. So, it's just like it's a struggle. So, and I don't know I haven't gotten to watch Arkansas like play a lot just because like I have Mizzou season tickets and September is always hard because most of your games are at home. And then we also had this game in St. Louis. So I had that and yeah, just kind of a mess. But this weekend I'll get to watch a lot more football. So that might help me out a little bit more. I think with Florida, I think we can beat Florida at Mizzou in November. Florida struggles in the cold weather at Mizzou in November games. They just have since we've been in the SEC. I don't know what it is, but I also just think with Mizzou being better and like they scored 22 points against Charlotte this weekend.
Yep.
And I'm actually in a pick'em league with OU fans.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
I know. I'm in first place, by the way. Just throwing that out there right now. And I picked Charlotte. I picked Charlotte to cover because I just don't think that Florida's very up and down for me. And I just didn't think that they were going to score very many points. And I was right. So I'm not sold on Florida yet. Just like I'm not really sold on Tennessee. But Tennessee is still Tennessee for me. They can still put up a lot of points. So
yeah,
and they've put up a lot of points on Mizzou the past 2 years, like 56 or something both years. So not been good for us.
I agree with you on Missouri. I agree with you on Florida, and simply because I still believe, and I said it on the preview show, whoever I had on preview show on college football. Herbert Raj. And I still think Billy Napier is going to be fine at the end of the year. I know he had that hot streak in Louisiana Lafayette, or Lafayette now, I guess is what you call him, or Louisiana is what you call him, but still, I know you can't, I know you say, well, I wish these coaches, I wish we kind of realize what the competition is. Yeah, you can go from here, from another. We see that a lot. I mean, look at Scott Frost at Nebraska. Even though Central Florida fans, we'll see you here on the 21st of October, you guys still ain't the national champions of 2017 or whatever year that was. That's not realistic. You guys, congrats on beating Auburn in the bowl game, but you guys aren't national champions. But I don't give it. And even if that was OU, I would still say the same. It makes no sense. But anyway, so I think he's on the hot seat. I think he's going to have to win a lot of games, and I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like either. But I think I'm with you on that. I think that could be the final nail in the coffin. Nothing against Missouri. I mean, those are games I'm sure if you go down the Gainesville, they're talking, well, we should beat Missouri. Well, should and could is two different things. But I think, I think you guys could be the nail in the coffin that could they had a great game against Tennessee, but I mean that's one game deal too. So I don't know. I'm with you on that one. I think Missouri. I think Florida. I could see that cold weather, especially in November, late into November. That could definitely be a interesting one, of course, and health issues down the road for both teams. Injuries and all this, that, and something else. So one thing that helps, that helps them out. Maybe Missouri gets struck with something. Hopefully not for you guys, but
yeah.
Anything's
I think
possible.
another win that I can see for us, especially at home, would be the South Carolina game. And I know people every year, people are like, "Oh, Mizzou's not going to beat South Carolina," and then we do, and then I tell people this, and they're like, "Wait, what?"
Yep.
And they don't think about this. We've now beat South Carolina 4 years in a row, and they don't know that. They're just like, wait, wow. You have? And so obviously 2 of those have been in Columbia and 2 of those have been in, well, they've all been in Columbia.
Right.
But 2 of them have been in South Carolina and 2 of them have been here. And last year, the score, I think we beat them 24-10. So we didn't score a lot of points, but it was a pretty dominating performance. We had the ball, I would say, most of the game. It was never close. It was never a close game. And it's very frustrating to South Carolina fans, obviously, because they can't figure out a way to beat us. And I mean, it's possible that they could come back and, beat us this year, but coming into Columbia, Missouri, and having to beat us this year it's our homecoming game in a year that we've been selling more tickets than we have before, and it's in a year that we're starting out hotter than we have before.
Mm-hmm.
We might lose to LSU, but if we go into Kentucky and we can win that game, hopefully then at that point we only have one loss. That game will likely be sold out then, so it'll be rowdy again. I mean, that'll be a hard environment for South Carolina, most definitely. So I can see us winning that game. Yeah, I think it would be hard for them, for any team to come into that environment and win. So I could see us eventually, being, I guess, what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-1 going into that game. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be amazing for a Mizzou season. But I mean, I was going through and looking at Big Game Boomers. He does those post the schedule,
Yep.
and he's like, what is Mizzou's gonna be? And it's like everybody being like 3-9, 3-9, 3-9, 3-9, 4-8, 3-9. Oh, they're not gonna win 8, 3-9, 0-12. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because people don't do any research whenever they look at those things. And I knew that Mizzou was top 10 in returning efficiency in both offense and defense. I knew that because I follow Mizzou. But most people are just like, oh, well, they lost all of these games last year, so they're obviously going to lose all of these games again. That's how all their minds work. But it's like, oh, you lost the same amount of games, but it's still OU. They're in my mind, I'm like, just because they lost all these games last year, they're likely not going to lose all those games again. That's just not how football typically is. It's all moving parts,
Unless you're the University of Connecticut, then it's the same for every year. Just mark them 1-11 or whatever.
Yeah, typically, unless that happens, you that might be true, or Virginia or something. I'm sorry if I do have a friend that's a big Virginia fan, so hopefully he's not listening to this. But yeah, so in case you're that. But then also with Mizzou too, it's so many of the games we played last year were one possession losses, and they were, if anybody watched any of them, they were maddening. The Auburn game, our 2-time Groza semifinalist missed a 25-yard chip shot to win the game. And then in overtime, we fumbled on the 1-yard line. And then in the Kentucky game, we got a roughing the punter 39 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And then they got the ball back and 15 yards because it was roughing the punter. And then, the NCAA changed the rule this year because of that.
Yep.
Because of the Mizzou game. They were like, oh yeah, well, that probably shouldn't be a rule. So we're going to change it to 5 yards since that is an asinine rule. So it was all these things happened that that were just completely ridiculous and Mizzou could have easily been 8-4 instead of 6-7 or whatever, and we just didn't execute.
Well, no, and you're right, because I'm looking through from last year. You guys lost to Auburn overtime by 3, lost to the eventual national champions in Columbia by 4. That's pretty impressive.
And we were winning the entire game.
Exactly.
We were winning the entire game.
Going to Gainesville, losing by a touchdown, and losing to Kentucky by 4, and of course Tennessee was just a blowout. Right there in itself, there's 3. So instead of 6-7, you're 7-4, 8-4, 7, something like that, 7-5, 8-4. So,
In the Florida game, they actually missed a really big, and it's funny because as a Mizzou fan, I see this, and maybe the Florida fans didn't see this, but there was a really big hands to the face call that wasn't called on a 4th and 2 that should have been called and AR ran for like 30 yards, and instead should have been a penalty called back. They would have punted, and then they scored on the next play. So like, they won by a touchdown. So it's like little things like that that are just, they're daggers to that, but that people don't see. And instead they're just like, oh, you guys went 6-7. You're terrible. You're probably going to go 6-6 or 4-8 or 3-9 because I'm looking at your record from last year. It's just crazy to me. People don't really, and I get it because I would probably look at Arizona State, or I would probably look at, North Texas or somebody that I don't follow and be like, oh, that's your record. Yeah. I mean, you'll probably go similar.
Well, no, it's the truth. I mean, look at the good Big 12 days. It was always Baylor, always 3-9 or 3-9 every year, or 2-10, stuff like that. So, no, look at Oklahoma, same as Missouri from last year. A lot of one possession losses, for the exception of TCU and Texas. Both of those were rightfully beatings, but the rest of them, the rest of the and even we barely, we lost by a few points to Florida State, but here and there and everywhere is a whole lot different. But we'll see. We'll see what Missouri goes. You look at sticking with Missouri real quick. Obviously, if anybody out there hasn't really paid attention, you've definitely missed a whole lot, which I don't know how you would have missed any of this. Oklahoma, Texas is going to the SEC in 24, which is not 25 like they originally thought. But what is your thoughts on the reuniting of Missouri, Texas A&M again with Oklahoma and Texas? But how does it feel getting at least OU and Texas in the SEC? And from your aspect, I know it's a little different being a former Big 12 member now at the SEC, but what does OU and Texas bring to the table from your point of view? And how would they fare in the SEC?
I've said from the very beginning, I think that OU joining the SEC is like the best move that OU could have made. I think it does nothing but
absolutely.
benefit. I think it does nothing but benefit OU.
Yep.
Like nothing. It's going to, because what OU can do now is say, because I think OU was getting good recruits before. They're getting good recruits in the Big 12. Now they can say, and now we're playing against the best competition. So now come play. Now we have more money. Now you get to compete against the best. Like, it does nothing but benefit OU. So I think it was a great move for OU. I'm glad, obviously playing against OU is going to be like, it's not like,
welcome back.
Yeah. I am excited though. I do have so many good OU fan friends. So I am excited to have everybody OU people back in Columbia and to go to Norman, because I do like spending time with them, and I am excited for that. It is a good great nostalgia. It really is, because how many years were Mizzou and OU together? It was a very long time.
Very long time.
So I am excited about that. I think it'll be good for football. I think it'll be a fun rivalry again. So I think that'll be great. And I'm glad we're playing OU first. And especially in Como. I think that'll be super fun.
Yeah.
Texas, I could take them or leave them.
Let's be honest. And I'm not gonna give Texas any credit. My good friend Lacey from the Laced Up podcast, if you're listening.
Oh, I like her.
She's amazing. She was on here, time flies, right before college football started, so July-ish. But a phenomenal chick. Knows her stuff, by the way. Her love for Texas, even though it's sad, but it's amazing. Hopefully we beat him this year. But anyway, but no, and I go belly up on what she said, as well as I think Texas and Oklahoma is going to benefit. I know everybody keeps saying, one thing that people have to remember is the fact that Texas is, in my opinion, is the original reason why the Big 12 disbanded to begin with, back in what 2012,
Mhm.
and because they had that Longhorn network, which never really panned out to be anything anyway. Just 10 long years that they had to had to have it, I guess. But it never panned out to be anything. But that's the reason why the Big 12 disbanded, and of course, then Texas A&M, supposedly somebody from Texas A&M flirted out, "Oh, Oklahoma and Texas is going," which, regardless if that was true or not at the time, who really knows? But if it wasn't true, hey, you got Oklahoma, Texas in the SEC. So I mean, I guess an Aggie did something great, but um, but I wish we played them next year. But anyway, no, it's gonna be fun going back to Columbia for Oklahoma next year, and but going back to going back to what you said though is and for Oklahoma it's a sales pitch. I mean Texas, yeah, it's Texas. You can do what you want. You get the resources, this and something else, and Oklahoma is about the same, probably different aspects from some different views here and there, but it goes back to what you said. I mean, Oklahoma's like, hey, if you want to be if you want to play legit best against the best, I mean, here's your chance. I mean, your home games, I'm looking at the schedule right now, is Alabama. Then you got South Carolina, which I really, really hope Spencer Rattler's there. Tennessee, of course, neutral site with Texas, which that ain't gonna ever change. And of course, the road games is Auburn, LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss. So welcome to the SEC, Oklahoma. But
Yeah, you guys got way
man,
harder schedule than Texas. I remember when those popped up on the screen, and immediately I was like, well, I don't remember if OU's or Texas came up first, but who's ever come up first, I was like, oh, shoot.
I want to
And
say it was OU's, but I could be wrong though.
it may have been OU's, and I was like, oh my gosh, they got the really hard one. And I just remember your guys' being way harder, and I was like, oh my God, why is Texas is like, and not that Texas is easy because nobody's schedule is easy,
No.
but I just remember theirs being like way easier than yours, and I was like, okay, somebody wrote somebody a check because that was not a fair schedule. And maybe people like look at, oh, OU gets to go to Mizzou. That's like way easy. I don't know how people look at it. But
I will say the only thing I was disappointed was that we did not play Arkansas first.
yeah,
I really, really was hoping that we would have had Arkansas first.
but they probably, I don't know. It's Arkansas is such a weird team. Like they have sat here for 10 years and said that Mizzou is not their rival, which is like so silly to me because they talk about us like nonstop on Twitter. But they still sit here and think that like Texas is their biggest rival, which is still crazy to me too. So I don't know. Is that who they play? They play Texas first?
Yeah, they get Texas and
but it's so crazy because they just played Texas.
No, you're right, and the fact that I'm also kind of interested. I like to have the commissioner on, which won't ever happen, but I like to figure out whoever makes up these schedules. What was the procedure because I'm not for sure if you knew this or not. We were actually scheduled to play Georgia this year, the second week of September. Instead, we ended up with SMU, and so but the next year, Georgia gets Texas and we get Alabama. I like to know why we didn't get Georgia first, simply because theoretically they were on our schedule for this year, and I think we returned it next year because we have Michigan in 25. So I would like to know why we didn't get Georgia. I mean, it's no big deal. We had, Alabama's cool too. Hey, come on. But
when did they cancel that game? Because I also thought it was weird that they kept the Texas Alabama games, but then they canceled your games or your game.
Because we made that. When was the official announcement?
2020.
Right before the official announcement is when they canceled it.
So 2020, summer of 2021, right?
Correct.
So then why didn't they? I wonder why they didn't cancel the Alabama Texas game. Well, I mean, money probably.
Well, yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, instead of they had Ball State, we had SMU. I mean, our game unfortunately was actual game, but and SMU's a good team. I am not knocking what they've done so far, but anyway, even though the ACC is weird with them in there, but I don't know. I mean, I'm glad we got Alabama, Herbert Raj. Hopefully things work out where we can do a collab on-site podcast, but I got season tickets too, and I'm glad because it hooks into next year. So you better get your tickets, people, if you want to go to the SEC, because I can guarantee you're not going to get them anytime soon after this year.
Yeah. Is it easy to still get season tickets there?
There's, I hate saying this, Maggie. They're really struggling to get them this year. They're really struggling. I don't know if that has some. I mean, obviously, I get the financial issues from a lot of families and this, that, some of us. I totally get that, and I'm not knocking that by any means. Inflation has a lot to do with it, I'm sure, to the unknown. But I really believe a lot of people still on the fence line with Brent Venables. And after what happened last year with 6 and 7, I think a lot of people is really, if I'm going to pour money into this thing, I need to see year two's results. I mean, I don't want to spend, and they ain't. Depends on where you're sitting. I mean, obviously they're expensive, but I mean, again, you're really good seats that's not on the lower levels, not bad view either. And they're not too bad, but I just think a lot of people's uncertain with this Oklahoma program. And even this year, I mean, Brent Venables led up all the way up to kickoff on the opening week and, hey, get your season tickets now and blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I'm sure a lot has to do with it. I think a lot has to do with last year's product on that field. And I think some people have to realize when you lose 30% to transfers or to Southern California, you're going to have a piss poor team. I mean, let's just be real.
Yeah.
You lose your practically your whole offense, all followed, Mario Williams and Caleb and your coaching staff. That was no loss. And then, some of your defensive players to Southern Cal and other universities and so on and so forth. Anybody's going to be bad. I mean, he got lucky that we went 6 and 7. I mean, so, but at the same time, give Brent Venables props. I mean, he could have been 10 and 2 too. So, with a really, really, different team. So,
yeah, if the worst you go in a year like that is you make a bowl game, I mean, the Missouri fan in me is like, it could be way worse.
Like, welcome to our world.
I mean, for sure. It's funny because like the worst, I can't even remember. Like, I feel like 4 wins is like the worst I can remember us going. Like, I think maybe in like a Barry, were we 4 wins in a Barry Odom year? Yeah, maybe. And that was like 2015, maybe, when like all that stuff happened on campus and it wasn't even like a football. We just had like a bunch of things go on campus. And people can look that up on their own. But yeah, we just I'm not talking about it on here. But yeah, we had like a lot of stuff going. But that's like the worst I can remember. So when anybody ever tells us like, oh, you guys are gonna go 2 and 10 or 3 and 9, I'm like, okay. I was like, whatever. Yeah, so I mean 6 and 7, people will be fine. You'll recover, bounce back. But no, season tickets, they're a big investment. I buy 2. Like I don't go in with anybody on them. I just buy 2 myself. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like a massive investment, I just always take somebody else with me. But long term, I'm like, it's still like a good, I don't know. I just think about it. It's like I want to know that I have them for.
Yep.
Like I'm bought in. So they can't take them away from me. It's like,
well, no, you're right. Absolutely.
But so Mizzou started doing this thing that's pretty cool, like in our upper deck. And maybe this was probably a ploy to get people to buy, but in our upper deck, they do this like, not a premium all-inclusive, but kind of like a family, like all-inclusive. Right. So you get like unlimited like sodas, like hot dogs and popcorn if you buy your season tickets up there. So it makes it more affordable for families to be able to buy season tickets. I think that's like pretty cool, but it's only up in like the 300s. And there's only one side has them.
No, I've never been to Columbia, so I can't really sit there and say, "Oh, I know that stadium," or what you're talking about. Is there just one upper deck?
Yeah, on one side, we did renovations.
We got 2 on our side.
We did renovations in like 2015, 2016. Just on one side, because we have like the press box on one side, and then the other side has like an upper deck. And then we did like south end zone renovations. Because we obviously have the Rock M
Right.
So then we did the renovations on the south end zone. So it made our stadium used to hold like 76,000, and then we did renovations. So it holds less people now, but it's nicer. So when people are like, "Oh, your stadium doesn't hold very many people," well, it's like luxury though. Like the
Who
suites
cares?
are, yeah. I'm like, it's like way nicer. Whatever.
I got a random question. If you don't know the answer to, I'm not going to say why. I'll tell you off air. Because I probably could get in trouble. If anybody actually listens to this from OU, and who knows, maybe they do. But I'll ask off air. Does Missouri? No, because then never mind. I'm not going to ask that because they're going to know now. So exclude all I'm about to say.
Okay.
Oklahoma, Missouri. No, I'm looking forward towards the SEC. I know it's a challenge, but I mean, again, it's the best conference in college football, regardless if you're Oklahoma. And for OU fans out there, that's sitting here saying we're going to go undefeated next year. I know exactly who you are, and you know who you are. Please get off that weed. I mean, I'm serious. As much as I would love for us to go into our first year and really run the Big 12, run the SEC, realistically, I believe in Jackson Arnold, our quarterback, but be patient next year. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, speaking as being the top dog in the SEC, do you have a solid number one team, Maggie? Because this past week, a lot of top five teams really, really struggled. Georgia being one, they finally pulled it off in the second half against South Carolina. Ohio State, literally yards away from winning on last seconds. Alabama, we obviously know that they're not up there. Texas, I'm not taking a shot at them. I'm still not sold on Texas as much as a lot of people that are. Do you have a legit, or Florida State's obviously beatable and should have got beat by Clemson. Do you have a legit number one, or do you think this year is probably the first year in the new college football playoff until it expands next year that we actually have a wide open field this year?
I actually do think this is the first year, and I wish it was a 12-team playoff this year.
Yep.
Like, I think that this would be the best year to have a 12-team playoff because I have so many teams that I think that would actually be able to, like, compete and have great games. And also, can we please talk about how does Notre Dame have 10 players, like, on the field? And I wasn't even, like, I didn't even get to watch that game because I was,
right.
I was so mad that I talked about this on my own podcast that I was mad about how the Mizzou game was on at the same time as the Ohio State Notre Dame game. Because I'm like, people, okay, so small side tangent.
You're good.
People were complaining about how bad the turf looked because the Mizzou game was at the where the Rams used to play. And the turf does look bad, like, mind you, like it does, like whatever. But I was like, nobody was watching that game. Like, not a soul was watching the Mizzou-Memphis game. No. Everybody's watching Ohio State Notre Dame. Like, everybody on the planet is watching Ohio State Notre Dame.
It's going to sound bad, Maggie, but I'll be honest with you. I was more glued into the Ohio State Notre Dame game that I didn't realize you guys were number one was playing in St. Louis. And if it wasn't for your tweets, I had no idea.
Nobody cared.
I didn't know who you guys were playing because I didn't care.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to tell people. I was trying to tell people, like, all day, like Sunday, when they're like, I'm so embarrassed about the turf. I'm like, nobody cared. Nobody watched.
No.
Like, that game was for St. Louis people and for the St. Louis players and for their families and for Mizzou only. We bought Memphis. Like, we bought Memphis out of that game. That game was supposed to be in Memphis. We paid them $1 million to play that game in St. Louis. I'm like, nobody, like 2,000 Memphis fans were there. I'm like, nobody even cared. But yeah, that was insane that they had, and I think they had 10 players on the field for like 2 plays.
It was the last 2 of the last 3 plays, I believe.
Like, what are you doing? That's absolutely crazy to me. And yeah, nuts. But the most impressive team to me, honestly, in the Big Ten has been Penn State. I think they're super balanced. All around. They dominated Iowa. I think they ran like 96 plays against Iowa.
Yep.
And Iowa, somebody was going over. I think Josh Pate like tweeted that. But I was listening to the what's the podcast, like college It's like one of the Saturday Down South podcasts, and they were talking about how Iowa ran like 30 plays or something absolutely asinine.
Yep.
Because Penn State's defense is just so good. So yeah, really like Penn State. Really like a lot of the teams in the Pac. What are they? Pac-2? The Pac-2?
The Pac-2. The
really
Wazoo,
like
Oregon State.
Yeah,
I feel bad for them.
I know. I feel bad for them too. Especially because Oregon State's like pretty good this year. I mean, they obviously just lost to Washington State, which I picked to win last week.
Did anybody, not to interrupt you, did anybody like made up a fake bowl national title game between these two, like the Pac-2 championship game or anything like that? I was kind of waiting for those memes. I never did see any unless I just
No, I don't think I saw any either.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I feel bad for these schools that like don't. I was nervous for like Cal and Stanford. I have a friend, my really good friend. Her brother plays at Stanford right now. So every year we go to a Stanford game.
Nice.
A couple years ago we went to K-State, Stanford at in Arlington. That was awesome. That was at the Cowboy Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we went to South Bend for the Notre Dame game.
Nice.
That was really cool. And I think this year we're going to a game at Stanford. But then, so we didn't know what he was going to do next year for his like COVID year. But now we might have some options, some ACC options. So I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens. But no, I really like Washington. Oregon. That was, I don't know. They
looked really good.
Oregon's defense held what they held.
6 points.
6 points and like 56 yards or something. And Oregon's not known for their defense by any means.
I'm not obviously going to bash Colorado because I mean they're going to be a good team whether it's this year or whether it's next year. I don't really know, but Colorado really got exposed.
Yes, absolutely.
Their depth, which we all knew, the depth on that line, both offensive line and defensive line, got exposed. Dion said that before the season even started. Oregon exposed them really, really bad. Really, really bad.
Yeah. They probably needed that game, but it's not going to get any easier for them. I mean, I think they have. I mean, did they have?
Well, they got Lincoln Riley this weekend.
Yeah, at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, that's USC's defense is. I've said this multiple times, but it's like Swiss cheese. But I don't think it's going to matter. Caleb Williams can put up 1,000,000 points. It's not going to matter.
It's a Lincoln Riley coach team, just like here in Oklahoma. I don't care if he left the way he left. I wish OU fans would just drop it. I really don't care at this point about Lincoln. But here's the deal. Regardless if Lincoln was here at Oklahoma or obviously now at Southern California, until he's going to be like a Mike Leach. Rest in peace to that good guy. He's going to be a Mike Leach. And what I mean by that is he probably, and I don't think Lincoln Riley will ever win a national championship. I just don't see that. And maybe he will. I really don't know. Could be this year. It'd probably be his best year if he does. His best chance, I should say. But he's going to remind me of a Mike Leach, and simply because he's going to have a lot of these good teams, but without any defense, he could never beat like the Oklahomas and the Texases and, sometimes here and then the Missouris and the Oklahoma States and Nebraskas and all that in the Big 12. And, of course, when he went on to, other universities. But he reminds me of that just because great offensive mind, he just can't ever get that defense fixed. But Mike Leach, Lincoln Riley, I don't know what Alex Grinch has against him or if he has something against Alex. I don't really know. Somebody's got a picture of somebody doing something they're probably not supposed to be doing. It's mind-blowing that Alex Grinch, even at Oklahoma, it's mind-blowing that he still has a job, especially losing to Tulane, even though, no disrespect to them. But, man, somebody's got something on somebody because how he still has a job is mind-blowing. And if Lincoln Riley would get a D coordinator, that team would actually be really, really tough.
Yeah. It is crazy. You always hear about all these amazing offensive recruits that he's getting.
Yep.
and just not so much on the defensive side. But it's interesting because I feel like, so obviously he was at OU, which is
Right.
in the Big 12, which has never been a defensive conference. We all know that.
No.
And then similarly, I would say USC's the Pac-12 or 2 now. I would say USC's not necessarily a defensive school. I guess
No.
I wouldn't say so. Yeah, I mean,
no.
But I feel like if he would have taken the USC job, and I'm not sure if he was ever offered that. You heard the rumors, but I don't really necessarily know. I think he could have recruited better maybe there defensively. Like, I think he would have gotten, I don't know if, do you think Grinch would have, do you think he would have went with him?
You know, a lot of people, and this is what was mind blowing. You know, he was originally mentioned for the LSU job, Lincoln, and that's really what even leading up to Bedlam. And I believe I will, unfortunately, have to support the conspiracy theory. I don't know if you heard this one or not. That Lincoln Riley purposely lost Bedlam because he was going to take the USC job the following day, which would have interrupted that because they would have been playing Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, and so he would have to take another week, and then Lord forbid we beat them, and so that would have taken another week after that, so or a few months or a month at least. A lot of people thought Alex Grinch would be the head coach at Oklahoma had he taken the LSU job, because I know that was mentioned. Whether or not that was true, I really don't know. I think anywhere Lincoln is, I think Alex Grinch can be that one coach that he's just going to follow him. Again, I don't know if it's because maybe they're good best buds. I really don't know the history between these two. But I still think somebody's got something on somebody, because this Alex Grinch defense, I think, is worse than it was at Oklahoma.
I mean, it's not good.
No, not even close.
So, and it's kind of obnoxious. I know it's funny because when I do my when I do podcasts for KCSN, we're sponsored by DraftKings,
Nice.
And I think about how, like, I have a futures bet, and we picked USC as our futures bet to win the national championship, and now I'm like, no chance. Like, I mean,
no.
Not that I think that, like, I think they could score a lot of points. I think they could score enough points to win a national championship. I don't think they could stop a team from scoring enough points to win a national championship. So I'm like, man, that's a bummer. Yeah, but so I think about that all the time. But I don't know. I don't know who could come out of the Pac-12. I think that they could come out of the Pac-12, but I think Oregon's defense is better than USC.
Well, I think Oregon's defense is definitely a whole lot better than USC. I think Caleb would struggle. They did fine. They did really well against Shadur Sanders on Saturday. Kept him content, and I mean they kept him all over the field. He was running for his life, poor kid. God dang. But and that's something against Caleb. I mean, obviously Caleb probably he's got a little more experience, and nothing against Sanders, but that kind of plays out. But again, I think they did the same thing with USC. I think I think they contain Caleb. If you can contain Caleb, you got him beat. He's a beatable quarterback. Oklahoma State did it. Unfortunately, I got to bring that because that was the last game I saw him as a Sooner besides the Alamo Bowl, and I don't really count that game. But they did. They did well containing Caleb. So I mean, and Utah knows how to beat USC. But
Washington could.
Washington's another team I think could easily. I think Notre Dame. Let me look at USC's schedule real quick. I think Notre Dame can beat them. I don't. They played really, really well, which I'm not going to lie. I don't think they would play that well against Ohio State, but they played phenomenal, I thought.
Yeah, Sam Hartman's really good. I mean, Notre Dame's
a beast.
Notre Dame's running game is phenomenal. Estime is great, but they've got so many weapons in the running back room. So It's people were like, I can't believe you guys lost to Wake Forest last year in your bowl game. I'm like, do you know who Sam Hartman is? I'm like,
well, exactly. And Sam Hartman's is a phenomenal player. I was really hoping that Oklahoma would have went after him, but I know when Dylan announced that he came back, I'm like, well, screw that off.
yeah.
But no, I mean, you look at Oklahoma, you look at USC schedule at Colorado this week. It's going to be interesting how that game, Maggie, turns out because again, altitude does play a factor. I've been to Denver a few times, never get altitude sickness, but I know it happens to people, and that's fine. People's bodies are
Mine
different
usually
than
comes
others.
after I have a few drinks, but yeah.
Does I never had any of that issues, but I mean, not saying the next time I go to Denver or Colorado Springs or wherever it might be that it may not happen. So, but I love Colorado, but no, I mean, altitude. We'll see how that takes place for Caleb and for USC. But then you go to you're home against Arizona, whatever. And then, of course, they go to Notre Dame. That's going to be interesting. Whether or not Notre Dame can pull out, we'll see. That stretch between Notre Dame and Utah, it's back-to-back weeks, is going to be very, very interesting because Utah has their number, obviously. USC, this is going to be, I can't really, I'm trying to figure out who. This is going to be like a Lincoln Riley, Kansas State kryptonite here. He can't beat this team for whatever reason. I don't know why. So we'll see. I think Utah's not what they were last year. But they got their number. Cal, I'm not worried about. Washington's going to be interesting. Oregon, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the last 6 games, I don't think UCLA is going to pose any issue. For the last 6 games, Maggie, I think it's really going to make or break Southern California. I think if they handle it well, obviously they're in the not just in the Pac-12 championship for now, but Pac-2 championship game, and they do well, then yeah, sure, we'll talk college football playoff. But I think that looking at the schedule, Oregon, I think they lose. I think they lose to Utah. I don't. Washington. I have a feeling they're just going to fizzle at the end. I don't know. Washington's going to do something that's just typical Washington, but I don't see USC getting past that stretch and not losing at least one game. And if they do, I give it to Oregon. I don't think they beat Oregon. That defense really looked good.
Yeah. I mean, all around, they just.
Bo Nix looked phenomenal.
I mean, he's a Heisman candidate easily in my book right now.
If he continues to have the success he had against Colorado and leading up to that USC game, that could be his Heisman game right there.
This has to be his last year, though, right? Like, if he has any years of eligibility left, I don't know. Like,
he reminds me of like Austin.
He's got to be like 30, 36 by now.
He's got to be like Austin Stogner, our tight end. I didn't know he still had eligibility years left. I'm guessing he's got. It must be his COVID year. I'm guessing because
it's got to be.
God dang, this kid's been playing for ages.
Feels like.
Do you think Caleb leaves for the NFL?
Yes.
Who has his number 1 pick and gets him? Please say us. We suck.
Wait, who's us?
We gave up 70 points. Denver.
Oh, Denver. But aren't people talking about how like, wait, who's the team that's like trying to lose? Is it Arizona? They're like teams are like trying
Arizona
to lose.
was, but then they beat Dallas, and that was kind of funny.
Yeah, they did beat Dallas.
That was funny. I mean, I can't say much. We gave up 70 points, but
yeah, I've not seen a team play as well as Miami played. That was crazy. Isn't that? Everybody was scoring.
Embarrassed. That was
sorry. But like everybody was scoring. They're like, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown.
It reminded me of the USC OU national championship game back in 2005, even though technically the 2004 season. That was just there was no answer. There was who's worse, Vance Joseph or Alex Grinch? I know it's not a topic that I had in mind, but since we're talking about how bad defensive coordinators are, we'll extend
man. Tie for first.
They both know how to give up 70 points. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you guys gave up what was it, 60 something against Tulane, whatever it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, jokes aside, back to what we're talking. No, I think Bo Nix. I think he's definitely going to be, I think, done after this year. I don't see how he has any years left to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, best quarterbacks right now, I feel like are out west. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how the season plays out when they're finally battling against each other.
Somebody, before we talk fan bases, somebody bring in Washington State and Oregon State. I feel bad for those two.
Yeah. If you're listening,
Mountain West Commissioner.
invite them in. Give them an
invite.
invite. Give them an invite.
Just somebody invite them. Come on now. Fan bases. We all love them. We all hate them. I got my love fan bases. I don't care about you guys, but you guys are cool in my books. And I got the ones that I just don't like. And Maggie, what are some of your fan bases that you've either dealt with on Twitter, and I know a few of them, or you personally, what have been some of your fun fan base experiences? Who's been the best and who's been the worst?
Oh, the best. It's so hard because the best, it's so hard because they're like, there's always good fans that are just like spread out. Like there's great fans in every single fan base. And then there's bad fans in every single fan base.
Of course.
So most recently, the weirdest fan base, and obviously we played them. So interesting. K-State. Wild. I mean, like, to a point of like, harassment. And I'm just like, okay, it's not that serious. It's not that deep. But like, it's crazy to me. I don't know. So they whooped our butts last year. They beat us like 40 to 12, and it was only 12 because we scored like when the clock ran out. Like we didn't even get to kick a field like or an extra point, like because we scored like
game over.
Game was over. Exactly. Like, there's no time left on the clock to kick an
game
extra
over.
Point.
Just move on.
Yeah. So like they had a year to, to like brag about it, and they did, and it's like rightfully so. Like we understand, like you whooped our butts. So then, like leading up to the game, it was like that, and it was like, well, we're gonna beat you by the same because we're not gonna do any research and figure out what's changed or if you've gotten any better, or, anything like that. So like being a female and that does a podcast and things like that, it's so much different than being a male. Like they focus on things and like different things than maybe they would focus on if you're a different if you're a different gender. They focus on your looks, or they focus on your age, or they focus on all these things, and it's very hard. And I know like a lot of women that are just on Twitter, that don't even do podcasts. They get told things about their looks, and so I always try to kind of like,
it's just the world we live in, sadly.
It's just the world we live in. I try to tell if I see like a Mizzou fan saying something to a female about their looks, I'm like, can we not? Because I don't like when guys do that to me, and you guys don't like when guys do that to me. So let's not do that to other women. But K-State, they went hard in the paint. They went hard in the paint. The last month leading up to that game. OU fans, they did that leading up to the 1 year the 1 year pick too. And I get it because like when algorithms, like my stuff shows up a lot. Like I get that. And I don't ask for that. Like I wish my stuff didn't show up for other fan bases. I'd rather my stuff just show up for Mizzou fans sometimes.
Thanks a lot, Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess, now that I'm kind of getting paid for it, I guess now I don't mind.
Well, no, you can't. I mean, if you're getting paid for something, you can't complain too much.
Yeah, now if I'm getting a paycheck, I want it to show up more. But
well, you are definitely on that one.
Yeah. Once I was like, oh, you only need 5 million impressions? Now, okay, bring them to me. But
Just wait till next year, Maggie. Just wait.
I know.
God dang.
It'll just get worse. But no, there's some like you guys have some like awesome fans too that are always what's one of the who's the tight end from wait, he's a tight end from Nebraska. Is he a tight end? Who's the kid you have from Nebraska? He's a sophomore. He's from Belleville, Nebraska. Oh my gosh. Caden Helms.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
His mom's great. Like his mom's always so nice to me. She follows me on Twitter.
Nice.
I think we were doing some spaces together, probably like like whenever he was a recruit. And she's always so nice to me. And like there's a few women OU fans that are always so nice to me. And so you guys do have some great fans. I don't want it to like ever come off like there's not great OU fans, because there really are some great OU fans. Mm-hmm. And then there's just some that I block and I just never have to see again. So,
yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, like it's just people take it just so seriously, and I'm like, it's really not that serious. Like we're all just fans that love talking about our teams. Like at the end of the day, exactly. That's all we really are. And I'm never trying to like crap on anyone's team. Like that's not who I am. I'm just like very pro my team, and I try to keep it as much that way as possible. I'm never here to start anything. I'm typically, sometimes I'll like quote tweet somebody talking about my team with like a stat, but that's not me like trying to like dog anyone else's team. That's just me trying to like correct you. Like, because you were wrong.
You know, we can't be doing that now, Maggie.
I know.
We can't be correcting people.
I shouldn't be putting the right information on the internet.
Exactly. I mean...
But I'm trying to think of like fan bases that I'm like I really enjoy interacting with.
How's Vanderbilt fan bases? Do they even exist?
I know one
Sweet.
Vanderbilt fan. And he's actually a guest on another Mizzou podcast. His name is Joseph. He's he's a guest on a Mizzou podcast that I know. He's great. Love him. I'm in a group chat with him on Twitter.
Nice.
And I have been for a while. And he's diehard though. He's diehard Vanderbilt, which you don't find that often. So love that. Jeez, I'm looking at like my SEC list now because I'm like looking at my schedule and I'm like, nope. Like
I'm sure they're ruthless though. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, all of them. Like no matter what, like Tennessee, probably the worst. Mississippi State, not bad unless you're an Ole Miss fan. Like if you're an Ole Miss fan, they're pretty brutal, I would say. Like they don't like each other at all. South Carolina, they can be okay, but some of them are bad. It's like nice. LSU fans aren't that bad.
Right.
There's some pretty good LSU fans, but you know, it's like any fan base. You're going to find some.
Well, of course, you're right.
Some crazies in there, but they're pretty nice too. So it's like, I don't think you're ever going to find a perfect fan base, but you're going to always find those people that are like, good luck, you know, before the game.
Yeah.
I like my fan base, but a lot of people think we're crazy. So
I got nothing against Missouri. I think it's kind of funny because some of these fan bases is like, how can you hate Missouri's fan base? I mean, what did they do to us? Now,
we do have a lot of like.
I'm sure if it's Kansas, different story, but
we do have a lot of like a lot of the things like this week. Did you see a lot of like the David Stone stuff?
Yeah.
So, okay, that all started just like one guy tweeted out the eyeballs, and then all of a sudden they're like, but his account is his profile picture is of Williams Wanieri.
Right.
So people automatically assumed that it was Williams Wanieri. And so like some OU fans were commenting on it and like thought that it meant that like he was flipping. And then it turned into like, then a Mizzou fan like was like, oh, I'm going to like troll a little bit and was like, and said something about David Stone. And then it was like, it just spiraled completely out of control. And then Mizzou fans were like, well, let's just keep going because this is going to be hilarious. And And then it was just like, it just got out of control. It was like on our message boards, and the Mizzou fans didn't even know if it was real.
Wow.
It's turning into quite like a rival, like kind of a fun rivalry, but also like,
next year it's going to go down in Columbia.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be like bloodbath. Hopefully not. Maybe not that bad, but
I just want them to be games. Like I want them to be competitive. Like one of my favorite OU games, I actually wrote it down because obviously there's a lot of not great memories of playing.
Is it the one of Chase Daniel picking his nose?
Oh yeah, that's obviously my
favorite.
Yeah. No, it's the one when we played OU in 2010, and it was like college game day, and OU was like #1 in the country, and and like we ran back the opening kickoff.
Yeah, I remember
that. And like that to me was like, okay, like we're finally getting over this hump of never being able to, win anything. And it was funny because Gon McGaffey actually ran that opening kickoff back. And I don't know if they purposefully tried to keep the ball out of Marcus Murphy's hands because Marcus Murphy was like a stud and everybody knew that. And Gon McGaffey was like on like the 20-yard line. And I was like, of course, like they're not going to kick the ball to Marcus Murphy.
Well, no.
And then McGaffey ran it back. But it was just like,
I remember that.
But I have so many memories of like, obviously I was in college during 2007 when OU crushed my dreams twice. And really only once. The first loss didn't really do that much. Like we still ended up winning the North and then playing in the Big 12 championship against OU again. Mm-hmm. So if we would have won that game as the #1 team in the country, we would have still played in a national championship. Mm-hmm. So really only the second game mattered. And then we were tied at halftime. And then we just let Sam Bradford
do what he does.
And Chase Daniels didn't do what he does. And
he picked his nose.
Oh, how devastating.
Who was the quarterback in 10?
Blaine Gabbert.
That's right.
Who is the Chiefs backup there right now? Uh-huh. He played the other day.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I didn't know they were up so big, because Taylor Swift was there, so they had
Does anybody really care about that story besides Chief fans? And
it is the weirdest. I think it's for show.
Well,
I don't even think they're dating.
Well,
even if they are, I don't think they will
be. No, they'll be broken up before the Super Bowl. But
what do you think they would even talk about? They have absolutely nothing in common.
Well, no, because Travis Kelce just whatever. He does his own thing as it is. Taylor Swift, I just can't stand. She just seems. Who's more annoying though, Brittany or Tiffany or Tiffany? Taylor Swift, Brittany Mahomes, by the way.
Brittany for sure. I'm a Taylor Swift fan, I will say, but I'm not a Swiftie. Like I'm not a crazy Swiftie, but she's the biggest celebrity on the planet.
Well, yeah.
And so he has no clue what it's like to be famous. And I'm saying that as a massive football fan. He can go to bars and restaurants by himself, with his friends or something like that, and he can eat and normal. You know what I mean? He can do that stuff.
Right.
That girl cannot do that. Whenever somebody tweeted, oh, he took her to dinner in his convertible from his personal collection. All I could think about was she was probably like, oh, that's cute. You want to see one of my homes from my personal collection? Exactly. Do you want to see one of my private jets from my personal collection?
Well, no, exactly. If there was well, that sounds bad because if one guy's a guy, that's going to sound bad, but I'm going to make it out anyway. If there was a Royal Rumble between Jackson Mahomes, Brittany Mahomes, and Taylor Swift, who wins? Forget it's a male versus female. We're just talking about by annoyance.
Oh.
Because I don't condone male against female violence, and that's what it's going to. That's
I don't know.
Jackson would have to
or
win.
Brittany. Yeah, Jackson. Jackson's bad, but also he's gross.
I'm pretty sure he's gay, but you never know.
Yeah, I don't know. Not here to judge that, but
No, I'm sure if they and even if Travis and Taylor is, they'll be broken up by the time
she goes on
Kimber
like an
wins
international
again.
tour in like November. So I
Well,
mean,
there you
and he
go.
plays football for like 3 more months. So I don't.
Yep, Super Bowl then.
Yep. Good luck.
Surprised she's at the halftime show.
Oh yeah. I had heard rumors she originally was, and then
Yeah, it's something.
Usher.
Forgot what it was. Now it's Usher.
It's Usher.
I guess we're just bringing back the oldies. Is that what we're doing?
Hey,
You can't bring back. I mean, you can't
big
mess up.
Usher fan.
You can't bring. You can't outduel Snoop and Dre and Eminem's halftime.
That was pretty awesome.
That was unbeatable. Who was last year? Oh, Beyonce.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
Rihanna.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too. But
it was all right.
Yeah, it was interesting actually. Now that I think about it, because she was like a pregnancy announcement
Mm-hmm.
too, so that was a little interesting. Yeah,
Even though she's big time prego.
Yeah, everyone was like, "Do you think she's pregnant?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely."
Well, I'm pretty sure she didn't gain that weight that quick.
Yeah, I'm
and
like,
if she did,
yes,
whatever.
There's no doubt in my mind that she's pregnant. Oh man.
Oh, Rihanna. No, congrats to Travis and Taylor on whatever you guys are trying to do. No, fan bases for me as we slowly wind down. Texas fans I've learned firsthand last year, even though rightfully so they had every right to brag. They're pretty annoying because every year they always say Texas is back. They're not back. You guys haven't won 10 games but 1 year since Sam Ellinger made that stupid comment. So
one of my favorite things is with Texas too is that they whatever their AD's name was whenever we left for the SEC, and he made that stupid comment about how Texas's worst years are better than our bad years. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then Mizzou's if you add up the years since like 2010, the win count of Mizzou's football wins since 2010, Mizzou has like more wins than Texas has. And I'm like, like we have more wins. So clearly your bad years are not better than our good years, because nobody is sitting here and saying that Mizzou has had like we've had one, I guess maybe 2 good years. I would say 2013 was a very good year. 2014 was a decent year because we still won the East. And then no other years have been good years. I think we had an 8-win season in like 2018, I think. And then every other year people have been like, Mizzou's terrible. So they haven't been good years. So yeah, Texas is just, they've been terrible. And I wouldn't mind if they went back to being terrible.
Well, and you may not do well either. I'm not going to sit there and say that either. We'll find out next year, and we'll find out from years after that. But I really don't think Texas is going to do what people think they will in the SEC. I could be wrong. They may run the show. I really don't know. It depends on how the SEC actually divides up everything. If it's a pod thing, I know the East and West isn't an option from what I keep hearing. Whether it's a pod thing or they just throw all 16 teams and you guys just beat each other up, I really don't know what's going to happen. I just don't see. Anyway, whole other topic for a whole other day. I don't see Texas, really doing much in the SEC. But I mean, Oklahoma may not do much in the SEC. They may both suck and be like a Texas A&M. I mean, it could easily be like that.
Yeah, Texas A&M hasn't done anything.
No,
I mean, not in the 2 main sports. I mean, I think their women's soccer team has like won a couple of things, but I mean, they've won a few like non-major sports championships, but football, they beat Bama a couple times. That's like it.
Yeah, and one of them was Johnny Manziel. So
that's yeah. I mean, we're 500 against Texas A&M since being in the SEC. So, and I love how they're always like, "Well, we would have done more if we were in the East." But the 2 years that we won the East, we beat them both times. So I don't know what they're even talking about.
Texas A&M, if they were ever smart, they would try to convince the Big 12 to take them back.
Yeah, people always say that about us, but the amount, like,
I don't think Missouri would afford to lose that amount of money.
no, exactly. And if anything, I think like we would try to go to like the Big Ten over going back to the Big 12.
Well, and that's what I was kind of thinking because, a few years ago when Oklahoma and Texas was mentioned originally for the SEC, that was a whole ordeal because everybody kept talking, well, what about everybody else? Well, what was it? Kansas? Kansas was a Big Ten. Tech, Baylor, OSU. Tech, Baylor, OSU. Somebody else was Pac-12. And I think Iowa State and Kansas State were the two left out. West Virginia, I think, was the ACC. And then I'm missing somebody here. But anyway, but that was originally how it was supposed to go down. But maybe the Pac-12 should have jumped on that real quick.
Yeah, they should have. I mean, they would be in a better position. But that's the thing is that people don't. They get so mad, like Kansas and K-State, and they always blame us. They're like, "You guys left us. It was your fault." Blah blah. And I don't know why they do that because Nebraska, Colorado, Texas A&M all made the decision to leave even before Mizzou did, and then the SEC needed to add somebody else, and Mizzou was like, well, we already tried to leave. So we already tried to go to the Big Ten. So you want us?
Pick us.
So like, but the thing is like, we knew that this was coming. Everybody knew it was coming. Those other teams knew that it was coming. And if we didn't get out now, there was a likelihood that we were going to be left behind. Well, so if it was just being proactive, and then you see what happened. Those teams got left behind. And like I was looking at 2022 like revenues, and like K-State in 2022 made I think like $81 million. Mizzou made like $140 million. And that's with like they're similar size schools. They don't like, I wouldn't say there's a massive difference in, I mean, Mizzou, I would say probably has a little bit bigger of an alumni base. It's, it's a bigger market with KC and like St. Louis and stuff like that. But like making $60 million more in sports revenue because you're in a better conference. I mean, you can't give something like that up.
Well, no.
And it just made way more sense for us to leave. Otherwise we'd be sitting ducks and we'd be in that crappy conference because with OU and Texas leaving, it's not a good conference. And you see what just happened with, I mean, OU just killed Cincinnati. K-State just killed UCF.
Well, and BYU lost to Kansas. No disrespect to Kansas, but we're talking Kansas still. And Houston, I don't know what's going on with them. I think Dana Holgerson's fired at the end of the year, but if he's not, he will be next year. But and as we wrap up, this will kind of where I wrap up is I think we're starting to see this conference realignment thing. And obviously we're not done yet. I still believe the ACC is going to break up. It's just I don't know what pieces are going to be who, what, where, and why. I still think Clemson, Florida State would be the domino effect of that conference. I don't know who to where, but I think if Florida State if they were smart, they would do it quicker now. But I know they got that stuck with that TV deal, so that's kind of a bummer for them. But no, I think we're going to start seeing that in the conference realignment thing. We saw it now in the Pac-12, now down to 2, and who knows what happened with those two. I'm not making fun of them at this point, but it's a serious conversation. I don't know what's going to happen to those two. Do they merge with the Mountain West? We really don't know. Does the Big 12 pick them up? We really don't know. I was going to say, I mean, obviously the ACC, I think they would have picked them up, but obviously they don't want to. Big Ten's not interested, obviously. Again, I mean, obviously conference, I would highly doubt this. I mean, I guess go to Sun Belt. Cool, go for that. But
I'm surprised the Big 12 doesn't just pick them up.
That's what I'm kind of waiting on. Maybe they're just kind of seeing how are we fit because, the Big 12, you lose Oklahoma, you lose Texas. I don't know if you saw what the commissioner did at I don't know what it was in Texas Tech. he was having some little rally or something or fundraiser. I don't know what in the world was going on, but he practically told Texas Tech to go beat Texas. He said, I'll be in Thanksgiving in Dallas this year or in Texas and something like that. He said, I want you guys to do the same thing you guys did to them this year and beat them. Dude, just realize that your two best programs historically and your money makers are about to walk out the door. And you guys bring in Arizona, you brought back in Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah. Okay, Colorado is a one-hit wonder. Arizona sucks, besides their basketball team and softball. Other than that, they really have nothing out there. Arizona State, I don't know what they got out there anymore. And Utah, they're just living off of football, and that's really what they got. Basketball is decent, but not like it used to be when what's his name was out there years and years ago, the big old center. I ain't gonna waste my time trying to figure out who it was. But I mean, the point of the matter is, you guys brought in, you lose OU in Texas and bring in those four.
Yeah.
You look at, and
Randy,
I mean,
even with Colorado, even coming back in, I mean, I think Prime's gone after Shedeur graduates.
Yeah, I don't think he sticks around Colorado. There's a program he wants, and I don't know who it is. He's trying to get.
Oh, it's in the South for sure.
It's try to get in there, and I'm not saying it's Alabama, but he's trying to get somewhere. And I mean, I don't know. Conference realignment, we're going to see. I think it's going to affect more smaller sports than I think it affects football. I think we're going to see a lot of these universities, especially the Stanfords and the Washingtons and the Oregons. I think it's going to affect them, especially Stanford. Coming from a university, they don't pour much into the athletic department simply because they're not there for athletics, and rightfully so. And so, I mean, I think we see a big hit on these sports. So we'll see. I think the SMU thing to the ACC is ridiculous. There's nothing SMU about the ACC, but I get it. It's everybody trying to position themselves, just like at Missouri. They probably feel, well, we don't want to get left out, and cool. I don't know who else would have picked them up. I thought the Big 12 might have, maybe down the road. But we'll see. I think the SEC for now is fine, but I wouldn't be surprised. I know I always keep hearing that North Carolina and all them, but I don't know. I'm about to be enough of this expansion thing. It's getting it's getting too much, because now you're not even playing everybody once a year. Now you're doing it's like, what's the whole purpose of this? But anyway, no, it's gonna be interesting. I think the Big 12 and Randy Powers, Mr. Randy, the host of the Damn Beast Bulldog podcast, probably butchered his title, but big time Georgia Bulldog guy. You know, he called it when he was on the show. Big 12 will not win a national championship simply because you got 16 teams, and none of them are that caliber to be in the race. So we'll see come next year for the Big 12 what happens. I hope they all do well, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for the Big 12. I think that they'll get passed over if the opportunity to have somebody in presents itself. So we'll see. I don't know.
All I know is expansion starts next year. Conference realignment begins. The new teams in 24, and we may or may not have EA Sports or college football game. Who knows? I don't know what's going on. So, as we wrap up, Maggie, where can the listeners find you at and listen to you on your podcast?
You can find me on Twitter at Maggie L. Johnson, and you can find me on my podcast at KC Sports Network. You can find us on YouTube at KCSNU, which is their YouTube channel for all college sports. And also that's their KC Sports Network is the Twitter handle.
There you go. Give her a listen and a follow. Be respectful, though. Anybody I recommend that follows her, you better be respectful, because she has the urge to block, and I will do the same, because I've been I've had to do some of those, but there's a reason why. Sugar love, everyone. But for your host, Air Raid Mike, you're listening to the Air Attack Podcast, your home of the unscripted, unfiltered, 100% authentic. Find us on YouTube, Air Raid Attack Podcast, and on Twitter at Air Raid Podcast. Listen to us on all major podcast platforms, and including Pandora. All new episodes launch tomorrow and every Thursday, same time, same place, guys. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend.